Yes,
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome from Tolu, Sam and myself to another ConeX Portal LinkedIn Live session. As usual, we'll be taking your questions and comments throughout the session. So please feel free to drop them in the comments box and we'll do our best to read them out. Obviously, if anybody's interested in finding out more about ConeX Portal and how you can become a member, please do get in touch with either Tolu, Sam, or myself. Unfortunately, Adam Payne, our wonderful facilitator, isn't able to join us today, so we have to make do with Sam. You have a tough act to follow, Sam.
thanks.
So, those of you who know me know how passionate I am about getting more young people into UK manufacturing. Therefore, it's a great pleasure that I introduce our special guest today, Jenna Saberton. Jenna is Curriculum Development Manager for Engineering, Marine and Aero at the Cornwall College Group and works with local employers to develop the skills required by industry for our future engineers. Also joining us are two incredibly talented young people, and I feel as though I'm way over out of my depth here. And they are Robert McKenna and Christian Varga Findlater. Robert is an industrial design student whose passion is to use industrial design to improve people's lives and change the world for better. A public speaker focusing on mental health and well-being, Robert has his own podcast, which I'm sure he'll provide a link to once this session is over. Christian is an engineering student focusing on the use of applied mathematics for systems design and integration in structural, naval and aeronautical. And that just goes to show I am definitely out of my depth with these two because it's just like whoosh. So welcome everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, Jenna, when you and I first connected in October last year, it became quite clear that we are very much aligned on the issues and potential solutions to a very much talked about issue within the manufacturing industry.
Yes, and I think we share that passion of the issues around the UK manufacturing, and one of the main ones being that there's a lack of young people going into the industry. I think that, I guess this discussion is around how we encourage the younger generation to want to get involved in manufacturing. I think there's a massive disconnect between the reality of working in manufacturing and the actual perception that people have around the sector. And I think that, I guess, employers and education are both to sort of need to get together and communicate more so that we can educate the teachers that are teaching the young children in primary schools, because they don't necessarily have that background in engineering or manufacturing. So I feel like we need to educate them by getting more involved, I guess, in the education system. So I guess industry has a massive role to play within educating the young children as well.
So, Jenna, you're actually an engineer yourself, aren't you?
Yes.
So you can see both sides of the coin, so to speak, can't you?
Yeah, so I qualified as an engineer back about 15 years ago, and I was working in industry for around 10 years. When I started having a young family, it doesn't quite fit, and I guess that's another maybe live to talk about women in engineering and the struggles. But I guess working in curriculum development, I get to work with employers and education, so I can get that link going. But I feel like post 16 is too late. I feel like we need to be going into primary schools and doing more in primary schools with the employers and education.
So just out of interest, did you actually fall into engineering, or was it something that you were really quite passionate about, and what actually inspired you as a young woman? Because obviously, we do have a shortage of young women in the industry. So what actually inspired you?
So as a young child, I would have worked alongside my father fixing tractors. He was a joiner as well, so he was building pigeon sheds and stuff like that. So I was very hands-on and got involved with just helping out fixing bicycles and just getting, because he was doing it, I was watching, fixing tires. I was able to change my own tires when I was, at driving age. But in school, I always had a passion for technology and design and engineering. So I always had that vision that I wanted to be an engineer. And I then asked my careers advisor in school, how do I get there? And they advised me what subjects to choose. And I went through GCSEs, and then I went through vocational studies where I did engineering as a vocational A level. Which allowed me to be hands-on and obviously work with my hands and do machining and welding and stuff like that within my class. And then I progressed into university. In university, I had to do a year out, which was industry-based, which was compulsory. So I was able to see manufacturing. I went into a bus manufacturing company, and I didn't even know that they made buses in the company. I just thought that they ran them, the timetables in Northern Ireland. So it was an eye-opener, but I feel like young people don't even know what's on their doorstep in the manufacturing industry in their own communities. And if employers get more involved in the schools, then more young people will know what's happening around their own area, and in their own communities.
Absolutely, and I think it's one of the things we've discussed before. Is that years ago manufacturers would be on our doorstep. We would live around the factories, whereas these days, because they've all moved out of town, because they're all on out of town sites, it's sort of out of sight, out of mind, really, isn't it? We forget that they're there, so we forget that we've actually got a manufacturing industry. I'd like to bring in Robert, if I may. Robert, hello, and lovely to have you here. And it would be really nice to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, massively. I think that there is a big disconnect, as Jenny has said, between the actual companies and then being involved in education. Because I remember I was quite fortunate at school in terms of that my design and technology department were very hands-on and had connections with companies. And I still remember to this day, one of the most memorable days I had as part of the design department was where, because my school is within Sheffield, there's the AMRC, which are not far away from near where my school is, and that has big companies like Boeing and McLaren, and they came in for a day and just showed us what they did with all these different composite materials. They let us go on a tour around the factory and showed all the different manufacturing processes and how these CNC machines were absolutely ginormous, and all the way down to little ones that can make Rolex watches and stuff like that. And it was honestly just absolutely awe-inspiring, because it gives you an opportunity, even as a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16, 18-year-old, whoever you may be, or even younger, to see the fact that you can make all these amazing things as being part of these companies. And so I think more opportunities like that one I had when I was at school need to be made more open to other students through, as Jenny has said, from primary school all the way through the education system.
Absolutely, yes. And I know what you mean about it being so fascinating, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who, when they first saw a CNC machine in action, wondered why they were throwing milk over it. It's really fascinating. Christian, it would be really good, because I know you're quite passionate about this subject, aren't you? It'd be really good to hear your thoughts.
Yes, for sure. So just to sort of start off, hi, my name's Chris. I'm an engineering student currently. I wanted to start off by saying, I'm really, it's really wonderful to be here. Thank you for inviting me up to speak. I think this is sort of it's really quite an important topic, and it's quite a broad one. I know Sam and Adam have made sort of a lot of interesting comments yesterday about the sort of perception of sort of engineering manufacturing, and I think sort of if you sort of aggregate a lot of the sort of opinions regarding sort of, you know, fields such as engineering and manufacturing, there seems to be some sort of a convergence to the opinion that it's not a particularly sophisticated, you know, career, you know, which seems, you know, somewhat contradictory considering, you know, the amount of innovation that's sort of happened over the last sort of, you know, past sort of decade or two. You know, if I sort of give a few examples, so if you take, say, I suppose it's more sort of associated with the sort of design field, you know, computational fluid dynamics was sort of developed in sort of early sort of 30s. Finite element analysis was sort of developed in you know, the 1960s. But a lot of the sort of complex numerical schemes that are sort of quite sort of common in engineering now were very much the sort of domain of supercomputers, not even, you know, 30 years ago. You know, numerical control for CNC machines, robotics. You know, that there's even been discussion of things like digital twins. You know, predictive maintenance, even, you know, modeling, you know, like logistics and supply chain phenomena. You know, the sort of level of sophistication in the field of sort of engineering and manufacturing is, you know, it's increased quite dramatically over the last few decades. And you know, if you sort of consider all that, I don't really think the sort of perception of manufacturing being, you know, unsophisticated, you know, aligns with the reality.
Absolutely, yeah, without a doubt. I'd like to bring Tolu in because Tolu, I'm a great admirer of Tolu's because he's just learning and learning and learning. His education just seems to be absolutely amazing, and he's an incredibly intelligent person. So I'd really love to hear your thoughts, Tolu.
Yeah, I heard a common theme in what Robert and Christian said, and it just sounds to me like a marketing problem fundamentally. So every other career path that you see young people wanting to go into, they can see it. If you want to be a doctor, there are many movies about doctors. There are many shows. There are a lot of TikToks, Instagrams. Essentially, you know what being a doctor is before you get into it. You have an idea. And every other career path, if you want to even go into tech now that everyone's trying to get into. But with the manufacturing industry, while I understand that a lot of the things they are under NDA, that's like a problem. Like a majority, even some ConeX members, we can't get to see a lot of the things they're doing because they cannot show it. So that tends to be a problem. But if we can find a way to just show more, shout out about what we're doing in the industry, show people what's going on, show people the new cool technology, the new things that have been developed, and how these are things that they just need better branding. Basically, the industry just needs better branding because yeah, that's fundamentally what I think.
What attracted you, Tolu, to engineering?
Really what I saw as well, cars and like technology. Well, cars mostly. So that's it's still the same thing. What I saw and what I thought I knew was what drove me to it. So, but when I got in there, I realized that engineering, especially mechanical engineering, is a lot more than just cars, right? So I just feel the more we can get to show people what is involved in the industry and the lives of people that are in these industries, the better, the more appealing it will be.
Very much so. So, just going back to Jenna, what are your thoughts then, Jenna? What do we need to do? What should we change? What should we look to change?
So I think that, like Tolly said, the marketing campaign. I think marketing and advertising need to get together with, you know, training providers, schools, colleges, and also the employers, and all get together and communicate and put it down and on paper what it is that we want to shout about, and actually then makes them sort of, you know, advertising. And I know like a lot of young people now are on TikTok, Instagram. You know, is that the way that we need to go? Do we need to market more on that? Do we need to get more colleges involved in and employers doing more like TikToks and getting it out there of actually what we do?
Yeah, I agree. You know, and I think the trouble is, and this is something that I would been quite shocked at recently, talking to manufacturers. There are an awful lot of manufacturers that don't have a marketing department, or don't even have anybody on their team that does marketing. They're quite, they've been quite happy to sort of amble along. The work's coming in, and that's it as far as they're concerned. So that's quite a shock. So you sort of think, well, yeah, we do need to do more marketing, but if the manufacturers haven't got marketing guys on their team, how do we do that? Who's going to do that?
I guess it's a collaboration between the education systems and employers, and bringing it together, have a forum maybe, and actually looking ahead, it would be good for companies to sponsor sort of STEM activities in their local communities, in schools, as far as, year 5, year 6, 7, and try and actually engage with the young people in their own areas, because, there are so many manufacturing companies scattered around the UK that we could actually, I'm sure that there's a parent of a school that they could go in and do a talk, or, create a STEM club, after school club, because schools don't have the finances either, and, to be able to push these activities. So if we could get, manufacturing companies to work with schools, sponsor them, and, and volunteer basically to maybe run these events in the schools or after school clubs, and that's what it's all about. Because like someone has said in the chat, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And, if we're not shouting about this modern technology and innovation, like everything that the kids are using these days is manufactured, so it, and I don't know if they know that. And it's about really getting, into those sort of skills and being able to show off what we do.
That's right, exactly. And this is one of the things that, when I talk to young people, I say to them, everything is manufactured. The bed that you get out of in the morning has been manufactured. The breakfast cereal you eat, the football you kick about with your mates, the PlayStation, everything has been manufactured. And quite interestingly, I spoke to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they tried to set up what they call a toolbox challenge, where they take toolboxes into schools, and the pupils have to actually make the toolbox themselves. They're given all of the equipment, and they have to make it themselves. And the guy I was talking to, very, very passionate about getting young people into engineering and manufacturing. He had hoped that he would get other manufacturers within his area to come with him, and each one of them have a school that they're connected to, and provide these toolboxes to the schools. Now, the cost for 100 toolboxes is £1,500. So he'd hoped that, manufacturers in his area will come with him, and they would do this toolbox challenge in the area. And he's had no interest whatsoever. And that's a real shame, because the schools that he has helped and he has provided these toolboxes in, they've gone on to set up their own little engineering after school clubs. We need more stuff like that. But unless manufacturers start getting involved and start collaboration, that's the ConeX word, isn't it? Unless we get more of that, we're never going to get over this issue, are we?
No. And then if employers are obviously worried about the future skill gaps, then they have to invest in these young people now.
Without a doubt, definitely.
Yeah. Can I jump in there as well?
Yeah.
I think you've just touched on it perfectly there, Jenna, that these problems, they're not going to fix themselves at the end of the day. Like we need to do something about it. And part of the reason that we're setting up what we're setting up is to find these almost collaborative pockets of companies that are willing to support and willing to help. There are some, I'm not saying that there's no manufacturing companies out there that want to help and understand the issue. There are plenty of brilliant companies out there. It just almost feels like they're going it alone, and they need that additional support to bring something together in essentially one space, because there's so many of them doing brilliant things. But if one company does something well and doesn't really shout about it, then how's another company going to be able to follow suit? If people are trying to start this themselves, they realize there's an issue, they don't know the route to take, whereas there's actually plenty of companies that have already gone down that path. So why don't we all just follow suit and support each other, rather than fighting against each other and trying to take up the same space, essentially. And I think there's something to be said about that collaborative nature to stop it being so segregated. That I am trying to keep up with all the comments, but there are just way too many. And I know Mark Weymouth has said something about far too many organisations and membership bodies all interested in generating their own income and their own money, but they're not trying to promote the bigger picture. And I think that's really important about how we can link it all together a little bit better, so we can give almost a set of kind of ideas and projects that everyone can follow and support. I'm kind of interested quickly, I know Tolu's kind of touched on it, I'm interested to hear Rob and Chris, what was that one thing at the very start of your career or your journey into manufacturing? What was it that kind of sparked that initial interest? Was it school? Was it parents? Was it local companies? Was it something that you saw on social media? What was it that initially sparked that I want to go down this manufacturing route?
For me personally, school was a massive help in terms of guiding me that way. But I was very split on what career I wanted to do when I was younger, until I saw a TV show that was called The Big Life Fix. And I believe it was on the BBC or Channel 4. And it was a fantastic TV program of where they would take basically people that may have a form of disability or impairment and create products to help improve their lives. And the first episode, I remember watching it and my mum said, this would be a good thing to watch. You'll really enjoy this. And I still remember it so clearly, and just seeing and how going through the design process, they could help this graphic designer who was in her young 20s, who had Parkinson's disease, was unable to do her job because of it. And so they consequently created this amazing watch that used all these motors and a different rhythm to be able to combat the tremors caused by the Parkinson's disease. And it just sparked my interest massively. And being able to see how amazing the prototyping stages were, and even the manufacturing to create the final personalized product, it was just it's what attracted me to design fully, and really made me commit that this was the right way to go, and design and engineering just needed to be the thing I needed to do.
Amazing.
Brilliant. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, for sure. So my grandfather was a design engineer, and also my father was a design engineer, and they were pretty open about what they did for work, and they were happy to talk with me when I was fairly young. They explained in quite a lot of detail, what engineering is, what manufacturing is, why it's important. They were never pushy. They always, were very much of the opinion that, if I'm interested in it, I'm happy to, chat with them about it. But they were happy to sort of leave me to my own devices, and I sort of just, I guess from sort of seeing their example, sort of just decided, this is something I'd like to do. I think there's many different ways people can be encouraged into the industry. I just think, if we've got more of them, that certainly doesn't hurt.
I think Peter Francis has just made quite an interesting comment. And I know this is one that I've spoken about before. I think, years ago, and I remember years ago because I'm very old, but years ago, if something broke, we had to fix it. Now, since the 80s, we've gone through this disposable period. If it doesn't work anymore, if it gets broken, we chuck it away and go and buy a new one. And I think we're coming about full circle again. People are starting to realise the effect it's having on our planet, our own carbon footprint. And we need to be looking at reusing things, at mending things, at making things last longer. And Peter Francis has put, his dad was his inspiration because he was always fixing things around the house. It's something we don't do anymore. We don't fix things anymore, And I think that in itself inspires young children, because when they see mum or dad fixing things, they want to get involved as well. How are you doing that? How do I do? And again, hopefully, maybe in 20 years' time, we will have come full circle, and we will have a generation of fixers, and we will have more people going into that sort of industry.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other comments, Sam, that you noticed that we?
I think, without going too political, because I don't want to take this down a political route, but I mean, I've been saying for a while now that we've been having discussions around this for a long time. And yes, while we need government support to actually support the manufacturing sector and help SMEs a little bit more, we've also got to kind of go it alone and just, you know, come up with the solutions and just take the plunge and start to build some of these initiatives and start to get things moving, rather than just, you know, knowing there's an issue but not doing anything about it. So in my point of view, this is part of the reason why I built ConeX and why, you know, we're working on several things in the background. It's to actually make a difference and start to move this forward. Mark, I have just noticed Mark has actually conveniently just dropped the link to the petition that Andrea has been working tirelessly to get off the ground. So if anyone wants to sign that, then that would be very much appreciated. And that's a kind of push.
I was going to mention that at the end.
Well, there you go. I was taking that from you.
Well done. Yeah.
So yeah, other than that, I'm going to have to go through all of the comments individually and send the questions over to Jenna as we go. I will make sure Jenna answers everything that's in there because there's a lot going on. But yeah, there's definitely I think there's been a bit of a momentum shift, and it seems to keep getting bigger and stronger. And there's a lot of companies now realizing there is an issue and there is going to be a massive skills gap. And we need more inspirational young engineers like the three that we've got on the call to kind of encourage others into it. I feel like the more that we can get the current engineers, the younger engineers to talk about it, the more we can move things forward. And I think that's quite important because young engineers will listen to other young engineers and hopefully be inspired by them.
I think some of the events that we've ran in Cornwall College, sort of careers fairs, we've invited employers to do stands and stuff and encourage young people to come and talk to them. But we've actually find it better that when we put the apprentices on those stalls so that they're more approachable, because, you know, you don't want to go and speak to, you know, a middle-aged man maybe and, you know, and ask questions. So it's nice that we need to get involved, you know, the younger people that are actually doing the courses, the apprenticeships, and actually give their opinions on what they're doing and how, you know, exciting it is for them to be able to go into that industry.
Well, I think they're the greatest advocates, really, aren't they? Our young people, our young apprentices, and we definitely need to get them talking more, and the old fellas talking less.
Just out of interest, the three here, what kind of social media channels do you use, and do you see are quite popular? Out of interest.
Sorry.
Now I've got a fourth young engineer.
Future engineer here. I need to fix it. Yeah. Okay.
So, Robert, do you use the likes of TikTok and Instagram and everything like that, for example?
Yeah, I engage with it every so often. I will be honest, I barely see anything on there to do with design or engineering, but TikTok has become a very good place, of course, where it's very fast paced and you're trying to attract people's attention quickly. And so I can see how even manufacturing and engineering videos would work. There's an account which does something as simple as cleaning the inside of cars, and that gets millions of views and millions of hits. And so I can easily see in how you can just show young people how cool manufacturing is and how you can create all these different things with these amazing 3D printers and CNC and everything. It would engage so many more young people than just keeping it kind of on websites hidden away or not even out there at all.
Yeah, we need to find a way to make manufacturing go viral. That's going to be the challenge that we've got to do. What about you, Christian? What do you use? I know you're very active on the kind of Twitter hours and everything that Adam does. Do you
Yeah, for
find
sure.
yourself-
So Twitter's sort of one of the sort of core platforms that I use. I really enjoy YouTube as a platform actually. There's sort of a whole host of really great sort of documentaries on engineering, and I think it's is it MTD CNC and MTD MFG. I know they post quite a lot of their podcasts on YouTube, so I quite enjoy listening to them. I'm unfortunately, not too big on TikTok. I actually don't have TikTok, so I can't actually make any comments on that. But I do think it's certainly, one of the channels that has a lot of value to offer. I think as Robert, I believe, said, there are sort of videos like cleaning cars that sort of do get a lot of views, and I think there is definitely a lot of room and a lot of opportunity for manufacturers to sort of market themselves via TikTok. A whole bunch of my peers use TikTok. I'm not one of them, unfortunately. But yes, so sort of YouTube, Twitter, and I suppose Instagram a little bit. So there's sort of three platforms that I'm mostly using.
Just to add to Christian's point as well, if there are any young engineers watching, one of the first people that I ever engaged with on YouTube was a YouTuber called Colin Furs, and he is absolutely brilliant in making homemade projects and showing you all the different bits of manufacturing that happens in between. And he's absolutely nuts. He's just brilliant to watch, and really, if anybody's interested in design and engineering, it just gets you excited. You want to go and build firework launchers and trebuchets and bikes.
Me and my housemates watch quite a lot of his videos as well, funnily enough. What I will say is, when we obviously tie this call up and everything, any additional questions that we've got in the chat and anything that we've discussed here, I'll get all the guys here to comment and leave links into any of those kind of YouTube links that you've got, any podcasts that you listen to, make sure we drop them in there. We need to find someone who has a high following to kind of pick this up and support us, I believe, but that's probably another conversation to be had elsewhere.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. So obviously, thank you to all of our guests for joining us. Thank you to everybody who's commented and contributed to the chat. There's been a lot of it going on, so it'd be really good to have a chance to read it later. Appealing to our younger generation, it's a really hot topic. Lots of people talking about it. Is anybody actually doing anything about it though? Watch this space. Sam and I might have some news for you. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye.